Live from Kentucky Speedway, welcome to ESPN Speed World presentation of Indy Racing Today, a preview of today's IRL IndyCar Series event, the Belterra Resort Indy 300. Hi everyone, I'm Bob Jenkins. We are back this week on a 1.5-mile high-banked racetrack, Tri-Oval. The race will be seen at 2 o'clock Eastern Time this afternoon over on ABC. Now, last week, we had a 1.25-mile true oval, and a 20-race winless streak was broken when Helio Castroneves wheeled into victory lane. And the point standings were really shuffled at Gateway as Scott Dixon, who was leading points, fell to 4th. But the top 4 in points are separated by only 24 markers, and the top 5 are separated by less than 90. The win by Helio Castroneves not only broke the winless streak, but it also vaulted him back into the middle of the championship points. And Jack Arute, it looks like that he could very well be a contender for the championship and the $1 million bonus that goes along with it.
Awfully strong in that third position, Bob. And it ended a 14-month winless streak for Helio Castroneves, and that was a convincing victory in St. Louis. But when you take a look at 2003 for Helio, he's led a lot of laps, and he's had a lot of top 10s and top 5s. But that win at the Gateway Arch was the first for Helio Castroneves this season. Now, for professional athletes, there is a major dirty word that you do not utter in their presence. It is spelled S-L-U-M-P, slump.
You can't believe how many players come up to me and say, I want to be in your slump. I mean, you can't believe how many guys have done that. That's what's funny about it, and all the players know. It's just unfortunately that some of the media don't know.
Normally, I have 50 words in my vocabulary, and when you go into a new word, I was like, what is a slump? I had no idea what it was until they said, well, you need to win, buddy. I was like, oh, really? Okay. You can't thinking about those things because that's just going to frustrate yourself, and your result is going to start probably showing up on the racetrack if you're thinking about that. You're going to be like going backwards instead of going forward. No dash. No communication. The pit has nothing to tell me. As soon as they said, gentlemen, start your engine, when I saw my dash, I'm like, hey, I know this is not good. So, guys, come on over here. Come and fix it. Come and help me. And they're already like waving, go, 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 go. I was like, no, 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 no. I have to fix this. Maybe in the back of your head thinking, well, they know what they're doing, so I'm going to do what I know here. Even if they are lying to you, but I guess they didn't because, well, you saw the result of the race. It's great for not only myself, but I think more for the entire team. Like I said, we've been always very close to it and never able to achieve. And yes, when you achieve something that you're always looking for, is always great. At the beginning, a little rusty, like, okay, where should I start? It was the first one, or but and then was like riding bicycle, say, I know how to do this. The championship is being very tight, very competitive. So you just have to be conservative, but at the same time, if you have a chance, you be aggressive. Don't take any chance, and I think that's what we've been doing whole year. As a team, I mean, finish first and second in the championship would be a dream for everyone. Myself, obviously, the championship, and I guess that's what you work for whole season, what your team work for whole season, So basically, that's what we're trying to accomplish. And hey, we still have to wait a little bit, a couple of months, to make sure that we can get out and start celebrating, hopefully.
So many of us can identify with the dash situation if we've ever had our computer crash on us at a critical moment. But the way your team gathered it back together, does that make the run for the championship that much more spirited because you've done it when you were down and out?
Well, Jack, I tell you, any win is special. Obviously, when you don't have those kind of situations, and it's turned out to be even more special. But championship's championship. That's why you're professional. That's why you have to keep focused during your race. So hopefully we're going to have a dash today. Maybe.
Well, I wanted to break the news to you. I saw Tim Cindric over by the car, and he was yanking a lot of wires out of it.
That's right. Maybe during the race I might turn it off, do something, if it's not going well. But so far we're looking good, and hopefully we can continue a good performance.
Bob, championships are defined by physical abilities, mental abilities, driving abilities, and a lot of luck.
And who will the champion be this year? Coming up, we'll talk with the other three top point getters, Tony Kanaan, Gilles de Ferran, and Scott Dixon. That when we return to Kentucky Speedway and Indy Racing Today.
At Kentucky, let's check on Scott Dixon's season. It's been a bit of a roller coaster ride, but remember how impressively this man made his IRL debut? It was a victory on the mile-and-a-half oval at Miami Homestead in South Florida. Then, of course, there was trouble at Japan. Twin Ring Motegi. This impact with the wall resulted in a broken wrist, but he didn't miss any activity at Indianapolis. He came back to get wins at Pikes Peak and also a win under the lights at Richmond, Virginia. And here he is today, starting outside in row number 1. I can't help but ask you, after the disappointment of last week's race at Gateway, gearbox went away after an impact. How much did that hurt you in terms of this championship? You went from 1st to 4th.
Yeah, it's hurt a lot. It seems to be, you know, how the season's gone for Team Target. You know, I think Thomas and myself have had a lot of bad luck, and you know, it just seems like, you know, maybe if it could have happened when we were running 14th or 15th or something, but it always seems to be when we're leading. But you know, Team Target and Toyota are doing a great job this year, and we've been fast at every circuit. We just need to try and finish these races.
And you've been fast again here in practice. Are you comfortable getting over the bumps that everybody talks about at this racetrack?
The car seems fairly decent. You know, I think there's probably a few more people struggling a little more than what we are, but you know, our Target cars are definitely faster on the Kentucky Speedway, but you know, we'll have to see what happens. It's going to be a long day.
Jackie's trying to get his way back up there to that #1 spot in the points.
And Gary, much like Scott Dixon, Tony Kanaan has had early season success. In fact, when he went to Phoenix, he gave Honda his first victory and himself his first IRL victory. And everybody thought that Team Green was going to be on top until Japan, when he, along with Dixon, was collected in an accident. And since then, for Tony Kanaan, it's been cobbling together top 5s, top 4s, top 10s. You got to win, my friend.
I know my boss tells me that every day, so we've been trying. I mean, we have 3 consecutive second places, third places, like you said. It's tough. The series is very competitive. So, Jack, I think, you know, we're going to get it one of these days, but nobody's really pulling away, so it's going to be very exciting.
Tony, how important, though, is it for this team? You're a brand new team in IRL IndyCar competition, and you're going to new racetracks that you haven't seen before.
Well, I think it's our little struggle. You know, it's all new for us, so we come here and test, but it's racing. Test is nothing like racing, so we're struggling. We have our ups and downs, but at the average, we're keeping consistent. So let's try to keep it on and see what's going to happen at the end of the year.
Well, Gary, if it's all new, at least most of it's all good.
Tony Kanaan has a 7-point advantage over this man, Gilles de Ferran. Let's chronicle his season. Of course, there was disappointment on the mile oval at Phoenix. This impact knocked him out of competition and forced him to miss a race at Twin Ring Motegi in Japan. But how does he come back? Well, he wins at Indianapolis. He drinks the milk. He savors all that goes to the great tradition of the victory there. And then, of course, at Nashville, it was win number 2 on the year. Number 2 in points, despite missing that one race, Gilles. Are you at all surprised that you're this much in the midst of this championship, considering what's happened?
I guess I didn't really stop to reflect upon that. You know, as far as I was concerned, I had a job to do. You know, we had a little bit of misfortune early on in the season, but you know, that was the cars that were dealt to me. So we just kind of tried to do the best we could in each and every race.
I get the sense that the feeling here is better with you guys on the mile-and-a-half tracks than it was a year ago. Much more comfortable, feel like your stronger performance?
I would say so, Gary. I mean, certainly last year that was not one of our strongest points, you know, so especially on the run-up to the championship late last year, we were really struggling, I would say, a little bit there. But over the winter and everything, we really spent a lot of time trying to figure out those type of tracks, and I think it's paying off. You know, we were competitive in Kansas, very competitive there. You know, I end up winning in Nashville. You know, Elio and I, we've been right up front in this type of tracks, and we qualified well here in Kentucky too.
Right, second row starter today, Bob. Wish you well.
Thank you.
All right, Gary, well, last week, Gilles' daughter, Anna, helped us introduce the starting lineup for the race. This week, we call upon the skills of another young member of the IRL IndyCar Series family and his mom.
Buddy, dear, my dad, and here's the starting grid.
Sam Warnes Jr., car number 4. Scott Dixon, car number 9.
Helio Castroneves, car number 3.
Gilles de Ferran, car number 6.
Greg Ray, car number 13.
Robbie Buell, car 24.
Tom Schechter, car number 10.
Alan Sir Jr., car number 31.
Sarah Fisher, car number 23.
Buddy Rice, car number 52.
Tony Kanaan, car number 11.
Jonathan Taki, car number 12.
Brian Herta, car number 27.
Dan Weldon, car number 26.
Kenny Brack, car number 15.
Roger Yasukawa, number 55.
Alex Barron, car number 21.
Scott Sharp, car number 8.
AJ Forth, car number 14.
Buddy Lazier, car number 91.
At first blush, nobody was surprised that Sam Hornish with the Gen 4 Chevrolet engine was back on top until they looked at the practice speeds. And Sam, during qualifying, you really jacked it up, got a lot more speed out of the Pennzoil Panther car. Where'd you find it?
Oh, we just took all the race setup stuff that we were working on off the car. That's all we really work on during practices. So we're usually towards the back. People always wonder where we get speed from in qualifying, but we know what to do when it comes time to qualify. We know how much aero to take off the car.
How much better of a race car driver are you this year versus last year because of the character-building Chevrolet issues?
I haven't won any races, so I don't know if, as far as the stats go, not very good. But just maybe a little bit more patient, a little bit more, I don't know, calculating, I guess I'd say. You know, the Pennzoil Panther team is really, we struggled at the beginning of the year, and we all worked together, did the best we could, really worked on the setups, and you know, I'm more focused on, you know, what the setup of the race car is this year, as far as knowing that it has to be closer to be competitive and be up there running for a win.
Bob, being patient and being calculating here, some drivers say, is the difference between first and second place.
And it could be Sam's first win of the year. It's the Belterra Resort Indy 300 later today at 2 Eastern, 11 Pacific, over on ABC here at Kentucky Speedway. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Kentucky Speedway. The IRL IndyCar Series schedule for 2004 has been released, and that tops our IRL news for this week. There will once again be 16 races next year. The first 5 races are in the same order as this year, but Pikes Peak is in the second half. That moves Richmond, Kansas, and Nashville up. The IRL's first visit to the historic Milwaukee Mile begins the second half. Pikes Peak moves to August 22nd, Nazareth to August 29th. Gateway International Raceway has been dropped from the schedule. 10 races will be on ABC, 6 on ESPN. Ed Carpenter, who won the inaugural Freedom 100 Infiniti Pro Series race at Indianapolis, will make his IRL debut at Chicagoland Speedway, driving for PDM Racing. And Scott Sharp has a milestone today. He'll start his 70th consecutive IRL IndyCar race, Gary Gerald, from the 18th position.
Bob, there was one negative to this weekend, and it occurred yesterday in a practice session. And this young man, unfortunately, Vitor Mira, he'd gotten the new Chevy Gen 4. He was looking so strong, and then he had this problem in the afternoon practice. The car got a little loose, then he lost it. There was impact with the wall. Unfortunately, he walks away from it with a broken bone in his right wrist that's going to put him on the sidelines not only today, but maybe for a couple of events down the road. But Vitor's here at the racetrack. He's trying to keep a positive spin on all of this. How are you feeling right now, and do you have any idea how long you may have to be out of the race car?
Well, we're going to try to make it as quick as possible. The IRL crew, they did an excellent job, put everything together. The team and John Mansville Chevrolet also did a great job putting the car together before the race. I will try to make it as quick as possible, be in an oxygen bubble and try to make it really quick.
Well, we wish you well. We're sorry you're out of this one because it was great seeing you going fast up until that accident. Wish you well. Thanks.
Yeah, when we crashed, it was pretty good. I mean, we were already second or third. Yep. We'll see. They deserve it. We will be there.
Yes, they do. Jack?
Gary, a year ago, while America was waiting to see the first woman actually dunk a basketball in WNBA competition, Sarah Fisher wowed America by winning the pole position here at Kentucky Motor Speedway. But that was 365 days or so ago. And for Sarah Fisher today, it's a start in row 5. But Sarah, a Chevy Gen 4 engine for the first time. What are the big differences?
Well, I mean, it's different all over. Not only does it have more raw horsepower, but I mean, it trims are different, fuel different, everything, traction control's different, everything is different about this motor.
Drafting so very important here, and I know you love to mix it up in the draft.
I'm really excited to be at the front again. I mean, for GMAC and AOL, we're there again, and that's really important going into next year.
Gary, Sarah Fisher's back with a vengeance.
And also here in the top 10 as a qualifier, just making his appearance from the motor coach, is Al Unser Jr. You were given two-seater rides at this racetrack on Friday to a group of Houston Astro baseball players, including Jeff Kent. And they were so excited. What kind of a thrill does it give you when you introduce somebody to this sport? Do you try to scare them to death?
Well, all I did really was give them the feel of the acceleration of the single-seat open-wheel car, and the two-seater definitely has the same power that we race with, and so I just tried to bust them loose and go down pit lane as fast as I could, and just give them just a feeling of it. And then once we got out on the racetrack, we were down in speed for the safety of the whole deal, and so it gave him a little taste of the G-forces that we actually go through in the corners, and we had a great time. I mean, Jeff was ecstatic about it.
I know these guys, it was a thrill of a lifetime for those guys. Have a great, safe day today.
Thank you very much.
He starts 8th.
Well, there are smiles in the Chevy camp here this weekend that we have not seen all this year. The red bow tie drivers are happy with the new Gen 4 engine.
You know, we just want to be a part of the game, and I think now we're in that position. This is that was our first run with the motor just now, so we'll just keep fine-tuning things.
I'm just as happy as everybody else, you know, to be able to, you know, run and be competitive, and you know, it's very encouraging where we're at right now.
It'd be great if we had 1,000 miles on it. You know, had tested it once or twice, but we're kind of going into this race learning the engine, as well as trying to adjust for the race.
The Infiniti Pro Series ran here at Kentucky yesterday. Jeff Simmons won his second in a row. Mark Taylor maintains the points lead, although he did not compete yesterday due to food poisoning. These are the points heading into the next event, and Gary caught up with the series' newest multiple winner.
Jeff Simmons now joins us, and with these consecutive victories, what looked like a settled championship just a couple of weeks ago has now become a wide-open affair. How do you assess your chances with 3 races to go?
Well, yeah, it's great for the Western Union Speed team. You know, we were kind of knocking on the door there for quite a while to get that win, and now that we've got these 2 in a row, making up maximum points on Mark Taylor, closed up the championship, and hopefully we can keep it going and get a couple more wins.
And trying to sustain the momentum, you go to high-speed tracks where drafting is key for the final 3 races. Does that play into your hands at all?
Certainly, I think we have a good strategy, and I think that I have a good understanding of how to use the draft. So I'm just going to try to stay up front, stay out of trouble, which is the biggest thing on these tracks, and hopefully we can get a couple more wins and close in a little bit tighter on them.
Keep an eye on Simmons in the Infiniti Pro Series Championship Showdown.
Gary, not far from here is Claremont, Kentucky, home to Jim Beam, the world's leading brand of bourbon and sponsor of Andretti Green Racing. And earlier this week, Michael Andretti and driver Dan Weldon took a tour of this historic facility from Jim Beam's grandson, distiller Frederick Noe III.
Check it out. Remember how I told you how to sniff it now?
Is this black?
Yep. Now, this is where Jim Beam's son lived after Prohibition when he came back and bought this distillery. I look forward to something. So you're going to win, bro. For sure. Home court advantage.
Home court advantage, and you get a distiller that guarantees the victory. Now, that's some added advantage.
Well, Fred Noe is a great ambassador for Jim Beam, and certainly the Kleintor's Jim Beam car is going to be strong. And with a name like Noe, he should know. So we're hoping for a great result today.
Now, you were quick in testing. In fact, you were the quickest, and it slowed down just a little bit. What is it about this racetrack that you like so much?
I don't know. It's just we always seem to go well here. It's just one of them that certainly the Andretti Green Racing team have worked hard for this race. It's important the last few of the season to be very strong as a team, and we just have a good, I believe, race setup for this track. But you know, in this game, anything can happen. But I think we're okay to score a good result.
Well, we know what Dan Weldon thinks about Kentucky Motor Speedway. What about some of the other drivers in today's race?
It's smooth as a billiards table out there right now, but it's pretty slick. So the setup's quite a bit different.
Although it's a little bit bumpy here, so you have to have a pretty good car, but we should have a fun race going side by side with a lot of drivers out there.
They smoothened it out, and
I didn't like it when it was that smooth. I actually prefer it when it's a little bit bumpy. I can feel the grip of the car.
The bumps aren't an issue. It's just an issue right now to try to get the car to handle over the new surface, basically.
Certainly, this track suffers from a bit of a drainage issue, and I think soft clay, and it's constantly moving. So we've gained a lot of ripples, a lot of bumps, particularly on the outside. So it'll make side-by-side running in the race pretty interesting.
Well, here's something that you never want to have to be caught with holding in your hand. It's an X-ray, and it's a broken femur, and the man holding it is Felipe Giafoni, and yes, it's his femur, and we saw the crash a little over a month ago at Kansas City, the tough impact. How are you coming along? You've been down in Brazil, now you're back at your home in Florida. First time now at the racetrack.
No, I think it's been hard. I didn't know that come to the racetrack and not driving would be boring for me because I don't know where to go, you know, so it feels weird to be here. But, I mean, great to be back at the same time.
Well, and he's hoping to be in a race car, guys, 3 weeks from today at Chicagoland, if the doctors say it's okay. Let's go to the men who called the race today, Paul Page and Scott Goodyear.
And it would be great to have him back. You know, the track here is at Sparta, Kentucky, in the Kentucky Hills. Beautiful terrain, but it causes nightmares when you're trying to build a racetrack.
Well, Paul, you're exactly right. This track is a state-of-the-art facility. A few years ago when they built it, as smooth as a billiard table. You heard some of the drivers say it's rough, some say it's smooth. This dark area that Sam Hornish is driving on right now is the re-ground section, and they put some rhino patch down on it. A little bit slippery in turns 1 and 2. A little bit more grip in 3 and 4. Both ends are going to be different. For the driver to win today, he's going to have to tune his car to both ends of the racetrack, which are different.
Yeah, but Jenks, there is a big bump in turn 1. Keep an eye on that.
This could be the most competitive race of the year for the IRL IndyCar Series, and you can see the Belterra Resort Indy 300 today at 2 o'clock Eastern. That's 11 a.m. Pacific. We will be live on ABC Sports. Coming up next on ESPN2, the 2003 American Tractor Pullers Association. We had a shower here in the Kentucky Speedway area a little bit earlier, but it's cleared off now, and weather should not be a factor for today's race again at 2 o'clock Eastern Time on ABC. So we will see you then. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. For more information, log on to ESPN.com.
They're inches away at 214 miles an hour. Oh, Jill DeFerrin wins the Indianapolis 500. Look at that. ABC Sports is live at Kentucky Speedway in Sparta for the IRL IndyCar Series Belterra Resort Indy 300, the 12th of 16 races for 2003. And the competition just keeps getting better and better, Jackaroo, in this high-speed sweepstakes.
Oh, indeed it does. Look out, Sam Hornish is back. His first pole position, first for Chevrolet as well. But no room to breathe for Hornish. All he sees is a sea of red and Toyotas. On the outside of row 1, the one of Dixon, and then it's Castro Neves and Gary Gerald, Gilles DeFerrin.
The man who wishes he was up front and who may have the most to lose today is the season points leader, Tony Kanaan. He finds himself back here in the middle of the pack, starting in the 6th row. He says this red-hot championship battle is crazy. The best way to protect the lead is to win. Let's see if he can do it today. The pressure's mounting. We're ready to go racing here in Kentucky.
It's time to get on with the Belterra Casino Resort Indy 300.
Ladies and gentlemen, start your engine!
The cars fire to life as the battle for the IRL Championship enters the final 5 races of this year. Last week in St. Louis, Helio Castroneves scorched the competition. Castroneves breaks the slump, takes the win, climbing the fence and thrusting himself into the heart of the IRL points chase. Today in Kentucky, it's horsepower of a different kind, where only 10 points separate the top 3 drivers.
Castroneves moves to third in the IRL standings.
Like a thundering herd of horses, it's speed, guts, and danger as the race for the championship heats up. And with nearly 50,000 people in the stands, this promises to be the most competitive race of the year, and Paul Page and Scott Goodyear will call the action.
Well, you know, these fields just get stronger and stronger, and now we have what may be a level playing field as we go into the home stretch of the championship fight.
And Paul, that's because of the new Chevrolet Gen 4 engine. Up until now, there's been almost 2 classes, and now all the Chevrolet drivers have a smile on their face simply because they know they have the same horsepower as everybody else.
And consider that points fight. 5 races to go, 50 points for a win, and the top 4 in the points fight are covered by a mere 24 points.
And Paul, actually, there's a lot of pressure on both the drivers and the teams right now. 260 points are available for all teams so far.
And Robbie Buell starts a season best 6th.
Robbie, what a difference a weekend makes. What are your expectations?
We're happy to be in the game and be around all day. You know, the last 50 laps, maybe we can do something to be on a podium. That's what we want.
Good luck.
Johnny Rutherford driving the Chevrolet Corvette pace car. He leads the field, an average speed of 217.4 miles an hour. Here is the starting grid.
Sam Hornish Jr., car number 4.
Scott Dixon, car number 9.
Helio Castroneves, car number 3.
Gilles de Ferran, car number 6.
Greg Ray, car number 13.
Robbie Buell, car 24.
Thomas Schechter, car number 10.
Alan Sir Jr., car number 31.
Sarah Fisher, car number 23.
Buddy Rice, car number 52.
Tony Kanaan, car number 11.
Takaki, car number 12.
Brian Herta, car number 27.
Dan Weldon, car number 26.
Kenny Brack, car number 15.
Roger Yasukawa, number 55.
Alex Barron, car number 21.
Scott Sharp, car number 8.
AJ 44, car number 14.
Buddy Lazier, car number 91.
Vitor Mira caught the wall off of turn 2 in practice yesterday. It was a crunching blow that fractured his right wrist, and he may be out for as many as 5 weeks. No Menard car in the field today. And in the Trim Spa track conditions, heat is the key. Air temperature at 86 degrees. And the track temperature up at 114 degrees. 200 laps, 300 miles. Fuel window opens as early as 35 laps. They can go possibly as far as 55. And this field is separated by only a half a second. Stories to watch. Several bumps, including a big one in turn 1, will make for a rough ride. The battle of the engine blocks. Toyota's won 9 races. Chevy has the pole, and Honda driver Tony Kanaan leads the championship. Gathering points today could forecast the IRL championship. 10 in-cars carry 26 cameras, including pole sitter Hornish and the points leader Tony Kanaan. So they're on the track in Kentucky and ready to go racing in what should be a barn burner of a day, Scott.
And Paul, one thing to watch out for, this track has been state-of-the-art, a great smooth racetrack, but over the winter, turns 1 and 2 got very bumpy. They reground it, put some rhino patch down on it, at different level of adhesion in turns 1 and 2, the 3 and 4, compromise for all the race cars and drivers out there today. It's going to be a changing track and changing conditions.
Almost all of the guys have said the same thing. One end, 1 and 2, is bumpy. The other end, 3 and 4, is entirely different. Sam Hornish, Scott Dixon roll toward the flag now. Johnny Rutherford, the pace car, already off the course. Hornish nails the throttle, and we're going at Kentucky. Field spreads out nicely behind the leaders. They're now all the way over those bumps in turn 1 and 2. And safely onto the backstretch. Hornish, then Dixon, then the 2 Penske cars. And Hornish grabs off the lead on the first lap. Came up to 194 miles an hour from the starting speed of about 70. Tony Kanaan jumped up 4 positions right on the start.
Well, Paul, you know, Tony said that he actually ran a race setup all throughout the weekend. He was not so concerned about qualifying. He knew that he needed points for the championship, concentrated on track time for race setup only.
Yeah, but he's been quoted as saying in order to win a championship, you have to win races. But you would think that his whole tactic has to change a little now toward garnering points as best he can.
Well, he tried to do that. He said, I'm going to win run race and get points. But you know what happened? He started to lose some points by not finishing.
Tony Kanaan goes by Al Unser Jr., Jack.
Tony Kanaan says the points pressure is like being in a pool filled with sharks. And he said with Chevrolet now gaining the parity, it's as if they've added 4 more sharks. And he said, Jack, it's like I'm bleeding.
So there's the Honda machine, Tony Kanaan. Kenny Breck, he jumped forward 6 positions on the start itself. He had a little problem this morning, though. A quick spin down in turn 1. Didn't touch anything, just tore up some grass. But it's good to see him back running well now. He's currently 9th. Going up to the 2nd place battle, Dixon and Elio Castroneves. The Farron is just behind this.
Now, Paul, you saw the Farron going over those bumps there, and the car bottomed out. Watch in the back of the car, and you see some spray coming out, and you'll notice that the pavement is actually marked where the cars are hitting. They're full of fuel right now, 35 gallons of fuel. Tire pressures are low. They'll start to come up as laps are run. These guys are aware where the bumps are on the track.
So the spray is a little bit asphalt, a little bit of the skid panel under the car.
Absolutely. And these guys know that also rain here this morning in between practice, and the track has changed.
At 215.3 miles an hour, cars on the move. We mentioned Kanaan. Buell moved up, Breck up 6, and Roger Yasukawa is up 2 places. But at the front, Sam Hornish Jr. continues to lead. Some guys with some problems, including one gal, Sarah Fisher, fell back 6 positions on the start. Remember, she was the pole sitter here last year, on board with Kanaan. Buell just ahead. We're listening to Buell's radio.
And Paul, as you ride along, watch the hands of Tony Kanaan, because we're going to see a very rough ride through 1 and 2 versus probably in turns 3 and 4. You can see the hands going over the bumps there. A lot of jarring going on. He lifts off the throttle. This racetrack used to be flat out all the way around, but the winter was not so kind as we spoke about.
Hornish Jr., Dixon, Castroneves, and DeFerrin. 2 Penske cars have put themselves in a great position as we go into this home stretch fight. Then comes Buell and Kanaan. That's the battle you're looking at. They're closing on DeFerrin.
Now he's changed his lines, turn 1 and 2 right there from the previous lap. So certainly a driver can feel that the car is bottoming out. And the problem with that is that the car bottoms out too much, the back end will come around for you, and then you'll be going towards the wall.
Well, Tony Kanaan coming up to do battle with Buell. He just got around Unser Jr. Greg Ray is just behind him and Kenny Breck. Field is spread out a little bit now, but not much. It's only 4 seconds that cover the top positions in this field. Average speed through the first 25 miles, 211.6 miles an hour. There's the separation at Kentucky Speedway. Sam Hornish out in front. Dixon chasing him hard. Castroneves has faded back just a bit. It's Hornish, Dixon, Castroneves, DeFerrin, then Buell, and Tony Kanaan continue their battle. Hornish, as you can see just ahead of him, is about to encounter the first of the slower traffic. Just that quickly, he's on top of the back of the field.
Paul, the first guy he'll probably come up to is Buddy Lazier. Now, Buddy had problems in qualifying. The fuel trim was actually on a lean position, not producing horsepower for the engine, so they thought they would actually run a little bit quicker here in the race, but it doesn't seem like they've been able to pick up that pace too much.
Roger Yasukawa, number 55, comes alongside of Rice.
You're clear.
Buddy Rice had the uprated engine last week, but they weren't able to convert it in any performance. They had some serious issues with handling. Leads the rookie fight right now, Roger Yasukawa. Comes out of the Toyota Atlantic Series and Barber Dodge Pro Series. And definitely somebody to keep an eye on, Jack Arute.
But they are playing a conservative game for Roger Yasukawa. I talked to Tom Anderson. He said right now they're concerned about right rear tire wear. So they said, we're going to run fast, but not as fast as we actually can in the late stages of the race until the first pit stop when they can check the Firestone Firehawks.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Scott Goodyear, we're probably going to see a very interesting tactical run for a number of reasons, not the least of which, with the kind of track temperatures we're seeing, they're going to watch the adhesion of these Firehawk tires very carefully. Not that they're wearing out, but that the adhesion level of the tire changes, and that may determine more to do with when they stop and why they stop. Thomas Scheckter and Dan Weldon. Scheckter fell well back into the field. He's only 11 seconds now from going a lap down. If you look out the back of his car.
Paul, we checked in with Chip Ganassi, and he said it's just a case of Thomas wants to run the car low. We want him to move up the track. When you run low here, you encounter the bumps. So we're all surprised that Scheckter is working down low. He's lost 7 spots, currently in 14th.
Yeah, but he did say something, Scott, about how he thought that the bumps were substantially improved from earlier testing that they had here. They worked diligently on this track because when they came here to test less than a month ago, they said, uh-oh, this thing has changed, the ground is heaved. We've got some serious problems here. The Scheckter is one of them that seemed very pleased with it. Greg Ray said it's a billiard table.
Well, that'll depends on how the car is set up. Obviously, Greg Ray's got a car that goes over the bumps. Maybe Thomas Scheckter didn't, but he said there's not that much grip out there. That Rhino patch that's on the turns 1 and 2 does not give him grip, does not make him feel comfortable. So right now, we're probably seeing what's the result of that right now. He's going down low, trying to get some grip. The car's not working well for him. He's not going to go to the front.
Even though they're aerodynamic cars, the key on a place like this is mechanical traction.
Well, absolutely. You know, this is a fast racetrack, and usually horsepower really helps you here. And I would say generally this is a 75% horsepower track, 25% handling. But because the track surface has changed since we raced here last year, I would say it's 60% horsepower and 40% handling.
Guys, just to amplify on that for a moment, we talk a lot about ride heights and how you have to raise the car up to handle those bumps. I talked with a couple of different team managers, and they told us we go up 20 to 50 thousandths of an inch. That seems fractional to us. It's like a minute adjustment, and yet it's a significant change from where they run the ride height at other mile-and-a-half tracks.
Takagi just got around Brian Herta for 12th place.
And Paul, to expand on something that Gary was saying, absolutely true. I can tell you from driving, they raise it 10 thousandths of an inch. A driver will know and go and say, man, what did you do to my car?
Scheckter tried to come down the inside of Dan Weldon, couldn't get it done. Now you're on board, Scheckter. Weldon ahead. Brian Herta just ahead of Weldon, and then Takagi, who's been moving pretty good the past few laps. So there they are, the top 6 after 26 laps. Back with the Indy Racing League in Kentucky, Paul Page, Scott Goodyear, Bob Jenkins, down below Jack Arute and Gary Gerald. Scheckter is reporting that the car is just absolutely terrible in traffic. He's been trying to get the car forward. Just ahead of him is Kenny Brack, who is also suffering some problems here. Both Brack and Scheckter are now just over 6 seconds from going a lap down. What about the engines and how they're performing here today? Well, Chevrolet is leading. Buell's doing a nice job in 5th. The next lineup is all Toyota, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. They're the Toyotas, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 7th, and 11th. And Honda, Kanaan is the leading Honda, followed by Ray, Yasukawa, Herta, and Weldon. But when it comes to actual competition this year, whoa, look at this. That's Ray down on the inside on Buddy Rice. Now you're on board with Ray. It's a battle of 4 of them all right together. Now you're behind that battle with Takagi.
And Paul, those cars are just dancing around right now. You can see how much they're moving. The dirty air from the cars in front creates a lot of turbulent air for the driver right now. And these guys are fighting the race car. Watch this. Off on the bump, sliding a little bit up. Takagi's going to take advantage of this. This is the time the driver just wants to pounce on the mistakes of the driver ahead, which is Greg Ray.
Takagi running up on the high side and just darts around the corner.
Ray finds himself a little bit off the speed by that one small mistake in 3 and 4. Take him a lap to regain, but it actually looks like he's starting to slow down even more.
Yeah, he's falling backwards now as Weldon comes around. Jenks, let's take us back behind the leader. What's going on there?
You documented how Hornish is the leader in a Chevy and Buell running in 5th, and then comes Buddy Rice, who's running in 8th position. He's moved up 2 since the start of the race. Remember, he was a driver who had the only Gen 4 engine last week in St. Louis. It did not work out for him, but he's looking very good right here today. Jack?
Bob, I just talked to his owner, Eddie Cheever Jr. He likes the way the car is running. He said also they are playing it conservatively. It strikes me, guys, that right now everybody's playing their cards close to the vest until this first pit stop.
Yeah, Jack, Eddie Cheever told me that last week the system just didn't work for them. They were getting input from several different directions, and they hadn't weighted it properly, Scott.
Well, they had a huge problem with the handling of the car, and what that means is that they try to make changes in the car to improve the handling so the driver is comfortable. But he started with understeer. The car wouldn't turn through the turn. They went too much on the correction, then an oversteering car, and they just went backwards from there. Not a great weekend at St. Louis for that team.
So Rice sits in 8th place, but Yasukawa and Takagi are on top of him. Next on ABC Sports, it's a double dip of X Games action. First, it's the Moto X Freestyle prelims and skateboard vert finals. Then tonight at 7, the bike stunt vert finals live right here on ABC Sports. For more information, log on to ESPN.com. Well, Sam Hornish jumped off the pole position into the lead at the green flag. He stayed there now for 41 laps, followed by Scott Dixon and Helio Castroneves. Nothing's changed at the top. Well, there goes the Pennzoil Panther, Sam Hornish Jr. leading the race. He has led right from the green flag. We'll give you some of the onboard Firestone telemetry to watch him move around this track.
The final things that Sam Hornish was told by his team before he strapped in the cockpit: don't fool around, don't play it conservative, get out front and lead as many laps as you can. So far he's kept to the game plan, but we have to watch this first pit stop and see when he comes in. The Gen 4 engine's supposed to get better fuel mileage than its predecessor, and remember the Chevrolets always had to pit early. Look for lap 5.5 for Hornish.
We talked about changing track conditions. Dan Weldon just got way high in the corner, so the track must be changing on them. Blistering average speed for the first 75 miles at 215.6 miles an hour. The IRL has warned Scott Sharp, be careful when people are coming up to pass you, because they thought maybe there was an attempt to block earlier. They said, don't do it again. Well, now our IRL quiz for you. Which IRL IndyCar Series driver holds the track record right here at Kentucky Speedway? Well, you might think it's Sam Hornish because he has the pole, but no, it's Sarah Fisher from the pole last year, 221.3 miles an hour. And by the way, with the change in the cars and the track and everything, as we watch Sarah,
they're open. Robbie's guys aren't set up, so we're going to come around them. Come around Robbie's guys.
They still haven't gone as fast as you had the pole, Scott,
keep
3 years ago.
Low 219s, but high 219s. The field is plenty fast, but plenty competitive, Paul, because they're just fast all the way through.
I think being conservative here. Dreyer Reinbold brings both their cars in, both Chevy powered. They don't want to run any risks.
Not running a risk, but Sam Hornish's team obviously figures that they've got another lap or two in them, and here comes Sam. Now here he comes. Remember, you're coming 215, 18 miles an hour. You got to slow the car down. These access lanes are generally pretty rough. He comes around here underneath power. He's already armed the pit speed limiter, and once you get up to the cone, he has to go 60 miles an hour.
Funny thing is, they're doing a lot of heart rate monitoring. You see Dixon came in right behind him, and driver's heart rate tends to accelerate as they go into the pits.
And Paul, as Hornish hits his stall first, they will not make any changes except tire pressure, Gary Gerald. They're going up on it.
About 5 pits down, Dixon is now in. The Ganassi crew is at work.
They begin to work on Hornish. He drops the hammer coming to you.
Hornish is by. Dixon is rolling. Now Gilles de Perrin is in.
Of course, for the green flag, that's dropping through the field pretty quickly. Hornish back coming up to speed. There is Gilles de Perrin. And that stop was routine as well.
Now, Paul, they talked about changing the tire pressures. That means Sam has radioed into the team, said, you know something, I'm not completely happy with the car. Let's make a change to get a reading on it. If they like it, they will turn around and maybe keep that just as it is, or if they think he can do better, they'll make another change the next pit stop.
The 3-car Marlboro team, Penske, Elio Castroneves, picked up the lead. Now he's stopping.
Watch out for Brack here. Come on in. Come on in. Come on in.
Well, Tim Cindric warned him, watch out.
That was close, Paul. There was only about, it looked like less than a foot between them, but Castroneves was very cautious.
Now the Indy Racing League has warned Kenny Brack about that maneuver coming out of the pits. Remember, they had that bad situation last week in St. Louis.
See, now Kenny Brack's supposed to stay in the middle lane, which is the transfer lane, drive along there, and then go into the high-speed lane. But he went from the pit box through the transfer lane to high-speed lane.
Tony Kanaan picked up the lead. Honda power here. Driving for Andretti Green now makes his first stop of the day, all the way down to the end of the pit road.
And you want to keep it simple, Paul, in this first stop. Take on the 35 gallons of methanol and 4 scuffed up Firestone Firehawk tires. Tony Kanaan enjoys a nice pit stall near the end of pit road. Comes in, and the key is to hit his marks exactly, and he does. The Andretti Green team goes to work. A little bit of a miscue for a moment, loading the fuel.
Car's creeping. And you see a little bit of a creep on the car. That always scares you when it starts to inch forward and they still have the fuel hoses attached. Buddy Rice just got real high in turn 2 as well. That's the second report of cars that getting a little loose over there.
And Paul, one thing we should note, when we saw the Castroneves pit stop, they took wing out of the front of the car. That tells you that his car was actually loose.
Nice, easy shot at it.
Takagi picked up the lead. This is the 59th lap.
Fuel and tires, repeat, 5.
Sure, Takagi is going to get a win this season. He's been right on the edge of it so many times. David Cripps, the team, they do a nice job. And he's back on his way.
Tim Cindric, it looked as if you took a little wing out of Elio.
Yeah, we took one turn of front wing out, just a little bit loose in traffic there.
What about the bumps? What's he saying about traversing them in the corner?
Sorry?
What about the bumps? How's he getting through that?
Yeah, he hasn't said too much about the bumps.
Guys.
Elio, I talked to him yesterday. He was describing the bumps in turn 1 and 2. He was, you know, his usual gesturing hands going back and forth and everywhere. Here is Rice, and mentioned this, alongside Scheckter. Wow, he got up there.
Oh, the car just, you saw the back end of the car, and look at that wiggle. Whoa. That's 200 miles an hour, Paul. He did a great job catching that, but the car went over the bumps. You can go about a lane and a half high. You get any higher than that, the track's real bumpy up in that area.
Well, Buddy Rice is a pretty amazing driver, but that was an amazing situation. Hornish picks the lead back up now with everyone cycling through the first stop of the day. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC stations. You're watching ABC Sports Championship Television. Sam Hornish is weaving his way through traffic, and in doing so beginning to pull away from Scott Dixon. Third place, Castroneves is over on the back stretch while Hornish is on the front stretch. I'm Paul Page, Scott Goodyear, Bob Jenkins. We're up top watching a great race. Gary Gerald and Jack Arute are down in the pit area. Hornish goes side by side with Al Unser Jr. Jr. is currently 7th. At Michigan, just 3 weeks ago, Alex Barron established an all-time race record speed of 180.9 miles an hour. Thus far here at Kentucky Speedway, the average is 210.3, and that's with one pit stop. That's the points leader, Tony Kanaan, just ahead while you're on board with him now. And Hornish is coming up to try to lap him. He can put that car anywhere he wants, Scott.
He really does, Paul. He goes anywhere on the racetrack. His car does not seem affected to the bumps as much as everybody else's car. And that just throws true testament to the engineers at Panther Racing, their shock program. Because right now, you watch his hands are smooth when he goes through the turns. We've been on board with other people, and they're being jostled around inside the cockpit.
Now, take a look at the comparison. That's Tony Kanaan on the right and Hornish on the left.
Watch Tony Kanaan's wheel move a lot more. His hands are jostling around. The ride is different. Watch his helmet right here. He's actually just going over the bumps. Still good, but not as good as Sam Hornish's car.
And Sam just motored on around Tony Kanaan, Jackaroo.
Conventional wisdom, guys, was you made adjustments for bumps either through a downforce or shocks. When I talked to the team, Benzo Panther said they have worked hard on their shock advancement. What you want is a shock that moves very skittery across these bumps. Said it's almost as if you were driving on gravel. You don't want the car or the wheels, Scott Goodyear, to bump into the hole itself. They call it a quick rebound shock.
Well, what's going on with Tony Kanaan, though? Because Alonso Jr. just dusted him off as well, and now Buell and Takagi are coming up behind him while Hornish comes up on Brian Herta.
Well, probably two things, Paul. Number one, maybe the car's not working for him, but when you've been leading the points and now all of a sudden you have somebody drive by you and put you a lap down, it sort of deflates your energy just a little bit.
There's a comparison, Chevrolet and Honda going side by side, Hornish and Herta. And he gets around the 5th place, Brian Herta. Wow.
And Paul, we talked about horsepower. Remember, this is usually more of a horsepower racetrack, but right now, because of the situation on the turns with the bumps and the different adhesion levels on both ends, this is a bit more of a handling racetrack than it was a year ago.
Mentioned Tony Kanaan, and right behind him, they got a line getting ready to get on top of Tony Kanaan's back end. He's got a fight on his hand. Tomorrow night, join Al, John, and Lisa in St. Louis for an NFL preseason special. The Super Bowl champion Bucks take on the Rams tomorrow night at 8, 5 Pacific, right here on ABC. So Hornish still out in front. Hornish, Dixon, Castroneves, DeFerrin. That's the way it's been from the start, despite one pit stop. Everything cycles through. Let's go back behind the leader once again. Jenks?
All right, Paul, we've been watching Alex Barron here in the last few minutes. He is currently running in the 10th position. Alex, of course, filling in for Felipe Giafoni, who was injured a few races ago. Alex started in 17th spot, and as I said, he is currently up to the 10th position. Barron has had some great runs in this car. He led, of course, 24 laps en route to victory at Michigan and finished 16th last week at St. Louis. His Indianapolis performance this year, he finished in 6th position. He is currently well up in the points, 5th in IndyCar points in 2002, of course, winning with another team owner. Paul?
Yeah, it's amazing that as the super sub, he hasn't really had anybody screaming right now. As soon as Felipe Giafoni comes back into that car, we want you in ours. He tried A.J. Foyt the 4th. Didn't work. Let's go to Jack.
Well, Felipe Giafoni is watching the super sub at work. How tough is it for you to be out of the cockpit watching as if your car is run by someone else?
Well, I mean, it's very tough. I mean, the car is supposed to be very good. I think the car is actually very good. It's just he had a bad qualifying. So, but the car is, I think he has a second fastest race.
What about you? When will you be back in the car?
Hopefully after Chicago. I mean, right after Chicago. Should be practicing the week before the race, and I'll be back for Chicago, I hope.
Paul?
Well, you know, the guys who are running a lap down are not giving this thing up at all. Leaders have been trying to get through this pack, but there are also battles going on right now as Hornish begins to close on DeFerrin, who is currently in 4th place. So Sam Hornish been the leader in a fast and furious race through the first pit stop and green all the way. Back with the Indy Racing League, Sarah Fisher and Scott Sharp took the 2-seater up to the ballpark in Cincinnati. Everybody loved it, and Sarah looked a lot better given the pitch here to Sharpie than DeFerrin did in St. Louis. That was not an editorial comment. We're on board with Scott Sharp now, who is he's struggling down in 18th, a lap behind the lead.
Early to fix the car. What do you think?
You heard the crew, Paul, saying we're thinking about pitting now to fix the car. So Scott's been on the radio. He's not happy with the car. Watch his left hand. It was probably working the weight jacker. Look how rough that steering wheel is underneath his hands right now. He might have some blisters by the time he's finished this day.
That's got to be awfully frustrating to know that the car
This lap Pit now, pit now.
Yeah, so they're going to fix it right now.
And he radioed back 10-4. Remember, he won at Japan earlier this year, so these guys just have not got the setup for this racetrack here today.
A lot of relief in that 10-4, too, wasn't there? Average speed at 135 miles an hour, 211.7 miles an hour. So Sharp brings it onto the pit road. And, of course, this is early.
Now, Paul, you see the hose that was actually attached to his helmet. That's the water hose, so he can drink when he's out on the racetrack. But here's the hose right there. Comes from a water bottle system. He's got a button on the steering wheel. He pushes.
Hold the brake. I'll reset your fuel. Hold the brake.
Some adjustments going on there by that crew member, changing the front wing.
It looked like Scott Erickson came across and dialed some pretty hefty settings into the front wing. I didn't see the rear. There's Sam Hornish Jr., 94 laps complete, Jack.
Well, how fast is Sam Hornish going? Well, a couple of laps ago when he went by Brian Herta, Brian Herta radioed into his crew. This guy is going so fast, I can't even get a bit of a draft off of him. That's fast.
217.7 miles an hour, his fastest lap thus far. But he's been steadily running 216 and a half.
You know, the package is together. It's the driver, the crew, the package has to be there for a driver to go fast. Not had a lot of confidence possibly of going fast this year, but put the engine underneath them, and the package has come back together for Panther and Sam Hornish.
We're taking you back to 8th place. And this battle, there's Robbie Buell, actually Tony Kanaan, then Buell, then Barron, then Takagi. All right together, Buell is currently 8th. You know, if Sam's performing that well, now remember, even when he had the Gen 3, he had some spectacular moments. But is there a point here where somebody starts to say, oh man, that engine thing may not be as good as we thought?
Well, you know,
too good.
It's the package, Paul. I mean, he's obviously got everything else together. They just need the horsepower. I mean,
outside.
Barron goes inside
clear.
and takes the position from Buell. Barron now 8th. Look at that lineup, though. Woo!
And even though Sam is getting his way with the field today, these guys are just working their heart out right now, trying for every position that they can get.
There's Dixon currently 2nd, trying to work his way through this group. Just came around toward Takagi in the 12 car.
Remember, Dixon was fast in every session until they got to qualifying. Team Panthers seemed like they were just content on working on a race setup and then threw something different at it for qualifying. Ended up on the pole, and I think they sent a message to just about everybody up and down pit road.
As Sam Hornish approaches the halfway point, Dixon is 8 seconds back in 2nd place and having to work his way through a lot of traffic. Hornish, he's just been unbelievable today. We'll be back. Well, there's the Pennzoil Panther, Sam Hornish himself from Defiance, Ohio. A tolerably good bowler, better race driver. And right now, he's just being unbelievable. He can not only fix him, he can surely drive him. He is running 10 seconds in the lead, but shouldn't be that far away from his 2nd pit stop of the day. Mentioned earlier that Alex Barron set a race record at 180 miles an hour at Michigan, and the race average here today way above that at 212.3 miles an hour thus far. Al Unser Jr. and Jill DeFerrin fight for 4th place. Hornish already been well past these guys. And DeFerrin heads for the pits. DeFerrin comes out of 4th and on the pit road, as does Sam Hornish.
What's your speed, Sam? Reset fuel halfway down.
107 laps complete. 2nd stop. Sarah Fisher got on the grass coming out of her last stop. Here's Hornish.
There will be no changes on Sam Hornish's machine. He said he wanted to lap the field the last time that he had a fast car. He looks to do the same today. Boy, when you listen to that new engine, it's got some bark. 8.9 seconds.
Oh, listen
Sam
to that
Hornish
power.
streaks by. Scott Dixon's team goes to work. Tires are changed. Fueling is complete. Cars rolling. Routine. Castroneves should be next.
Castroneves will have picked up the lead. Hornish Jr. and Dixon on the same lap. Barron, well, looks like he pitched it sideways. And he's been there for a while. Wonder what's going on here.
They're certainly not in too much of a rush right now, Paul, so there must be some other issue than just obviously the normal service with tires and fuel.
Yeah, they've still got it jacked, but they went out behind it, pull the rear end around.
Sounds like 3 more possibly for Castroneves. Now, what he would be hoping for right now, Paul, is a yellow. That way he would be able to pit underneath yellow caution, a slower pace on the field, obviously on the racetrack. That would help him out tremendously.
Well, the Penske guys are at it again, I think, because they brought DeFerrin in what would seem to be early, and they're keeping Castroneves out, Jack.
And Alex Barron's day is done. Paul, he came in on what we call dead stick. No fire underneath the hood with his Hollywood Toyota. They looked at the car. They thought maybe they'd run him dry of fuel. That wasn't the case. When they started to refire the car, the telltale whiffs of smoke just emanated. It's over for Monon Racing's Alex Barron.
His teammate Tora Takagi, though, currently runs 5th and is beginning to put some pressure on 4th place Tony Kanaan. But the game begins here. The advantage of a 2-car team is that you can split the strategy, and that's what Penske has done. But now here comes Castroneves in behind Buddy Rice.
Now both of these guys will have to watch to see if there's any changes coming on. Remember Castroneves last time, 1 full turn out of the front wing. Let's wait to see if he has any changes requested this time.
Scott, we understand they may go a half turn up on front wing this time. We'll see.
That means the car has too much push from the past stop, so now they'll put some more front wing back into it to help him with front bite.
He heads for crew chief Rick Reineman, who does the right front. Already they're going to work on the wheel.
This is a seasoned team. They've done it countless times. Reineman for more than 20 years on the right front of Penske operation, but a problem disengaging the fuel hole. Now it's clean. He lost a couple of seconds. That was 13 plus seconds.
Brian Herta comes in. Troy Anderson, the refueler on that car, set and then reset the nozzle in the car. Now Herta stops. That looks good.
No changes on that one, Paul, that we can see with the wings.
Kanaan picked up the lead. Again, we're going through this cycle of pit stops, which should, barring any major situation in the pits, which we have not seen, bring us right back to Sam Hornish Jr. as the leader. But the interval between these stops is going to make a big difference when we get to the final lap. Gary?
Tony Kanaan now to get his second servicing of the day. A lot of head scratching going on down here, guys, because of the way Hornish is dominating this race. Most of these guys are reporting the cars are working pretty good. No major changes there for Kanaan, but he's still got a long way to go.
He comes in on the 116th lap, Tony Kanaan does. Jack Arute?
Well, they've diagnosed it for Alex Barron. A fuel pump put him out of the race. But, Alex, you had moved up almost 10 spots. The car was running how good?
Well, it's been really good. We got a good balance for the race and moving consistently up. And unfortunately, we had a fuel pump let go and put us out of the race. But that's the way it goes.
How about the torrid pace being set by Sam Hornish? Have you seen anything like that lately?
Yeah, they're pretty fast out there, and they definitely got a good setup, and they're running strong. But I think we started a little bit behind this weekend coming in, and we're just slowly catching up. And I think in the race we made some momentum, but they're running strong.
Well, his teammate Tora Takagi now is the leader of the race. Just ran a lap at 216.7 miles an hour. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC stations. You're watching ABC Sports Championship Television. The Indy Racing League with 126 laps complete and an average of 210.3 miles an hour gets you up to speed. Tora Takagi ran it out of fuel in the lead and had to limp into the pits and has fallen therefore 4 laps behind the race to 19th place. And Sam Hornish Jr. picks up the lead. 11 seconds behind is Scott Dixon. They're the only cars on the lead lap.
And Paul David Cripps calls the shots for Tora Takagi. How can you run out of fuel with all the telemetry. Were you trying to push it?
Well, needless to say, it wasn't something we was expecting. We were showed that we could comfortably fit on that lap. I mean, we were just basically trying to stretch our fuel as long as possible in the hope that we would get a yellow to get back on strategy with Hornish. Unfortunately, it's one of those things, and hopefully we can get back in this thing.
Guys, this is not the first time we've seen fuel consumption issues with Toyota power plants.
Hornish, though, is back out doing it again. 217.9 miles an hour, the last lap. Fastest car out there without question. Dixon just turned one at 216.1, but he's steadily falling back. He's now 11.5 seconds behind Sam Hornish. Let's go to Bob Jenkins.
Well, let's answer a few questions here, or pose a few questions for the second half of this race. We have 70 laps to go. My question is, can Sam Hornish continue the incredible domination that he has showed in the first 130 laps? Only one other car besides him on the lead lap, that is Dixon, and he is almost 12 seconds behind. The other question, will we see a new speed record set here? After this second set of pit stops, 210.785 is the average speed. There is only one car out of the race at this time. That is Alex Barron. We have had 5 different leaders. Sam Hornish has led for 112 laps and 9 lead changes. And the other question, Jackaroo, is, and I guess it's a rather obvious one, just one more pit stop for these guys?
Oh, yes, indeed, Paul. Starting with the leader, all Sam Hornish wants to do is put his foot on the throat of the competition. That's what they talked about before he got in the car. No conservative play today. They've shown it. There has been only one chassis change, Gary Gerald, on the lead car, and that was a change of a ½ pound of air pressure in the first pit stop.
And my, how things have changed with Hornish dominating this race. So much of this year, Scott Dixon, currently in second, 12 seconds back, had been the dominator. Remember, he's led over 600 laps this year. He's not made an aero change on the car. The car is working good, but Hornish is just stomping on this field, and there's a lot of frustration in the Ganassi camp. Jack?
So, Gary, if it's Chevrolet followed by Toyota, the first Honda is Brian Herta. Herta has been working methodically. They have been trying to conserve just a little bit of fuel. No major changes on that car. There was a slight push, but in the last pit stop, they took that out, they think. For Al Unser Jr., a push as well. The understeer was cured by making a change in the front wing. And then, Gary Gerald, they also made a tire pressure change as well.
For Castro Neves, currently running in 5th place, we saw the aero change on the front wing, a half turn added on the last stop. He made a full turn on the first stop. They're trying to dial that car in, but of course, they're a lap down. It's hard to keep your momentum mentally up. Gilles de Ferran, meanwhile, he hasn't made any changes on that car. He hasn't uttered a word, we're told, on the radio. He's just soldiering it out. Remember, he's only 7 points out of the championship lead, held by Tony Kanaan coming in. Kanaan, incidentally, runs 7th, Bob.
And if Sam Hornish can put Dixon a lap down, he will lap the entire field. The last time that happened was October of 1999 at Texas, when Mark Dismore ended up a lap ahead of the rest of the field. And you can see there that it is almost a ½ lap advantage right now for Sam Hornish, as he has a huge lead over Scott Dixon, the only other car on the lead lap in terms of seconds. As we watch Dixon cross the line, it's 13.3 seconds. That's the disadvantage that Dixon has from Sam Hornish Jr. Paul?
Yeah, you know, Hornish has been able to average amazing 217 miles an hour. Next on ABC Sports, it's a double dip of X Games action. First, the Moto X Freestyle Prelims and Skateboard Vert Finals. Tonight at 7, Bike Stunt, right here on ABC Sports. 13 seconds Hornish now has on Scott Dixon. The lineup, engine-wise, is Chevy, Toyota, Honda, 1, 2, 3. The Honda belongs to Brian Herta.
Paul, I think that shows you how even the field really can be, because you have all 3 manufacturers represented up there. We talked about chassis manufacturers last week, with Delara actually now having 6 wins this season over G-Force, which has 5. One thing that I think about when I watch Sam Hornish right now, all the other competitors up and down pit road are probably very happy that Sam didn't have the Chevrolet in all season long, because he'd probably be a runaway for a 3rd championship.
So Sam Hornish averaging now over 211 miles an hour, and that's with 2 green flag pit stops. So this gigantic crowd here at Kentucky Speedway not only come through the gates, there's some great camping, and they're getting a great show. We'll be back.
It comes on lap 147, the first caution of this race, and it's because there was a huge puff of smoke seen from the 15 car driven by Kenny Breck. So the pace for the first time in this race slows down. We were averaging almost 211.5 miles an hour before this first slowdown. And you can see now how there is even fire at the back of that car as Kenny proceeds to the pit area. That obviously is going to mean the end of the day for Kenny Breck, driving for Bobby Ray Hall. The smoke just keeps getting worse and worse on that car. Now, the pits are going to open here in a few minutes, and this will undoubtedly be the last pit stop that these drivers will need. And now the fire continues to burn rather badly as the cowling over the engine.
And the safety car, the safety truck chased him down pit road.
We've seen, of course, several incidents of fire on pit lane this year, but this was a result of a car catching fire on track, then coming to his pit box. And the fire was quickly extinguished, and everything appears to be in good shape. Whenever we come to Kentucky Speedway, we think about last year and our friend Jason Priestley. You remember, he used to be in the broadcast booth with us here a couple of years ago, on our 3 years ago actually, on our IRL telecast. But last year he was warming up for an Infiniti Pro Series race here at Kentucky and had a horrific accident. I talked with him last week, and he tells me that he is doing fine, no major after effects of the crash, with the exception of the fact that those first few steps in the morning are kind of stiff. As far as the psychological damage, well, he doesn't have any, simply because he doesn't remember much of the month of August last year. In terms of a racing future, he says it's still in his blood. But if he ever does get back in a race car, it will be at a much slower pace. Now, as far as what he's doing now, I talked to him just before he left to film a movie. Now, last week at St. Louis, one of the Kelly crew members was injured in an accident on pit road. Anton Julian underwent surgery last week on ligament damage to his knee, but he is expected to be released from the hospital very soon. That was the left rear tire changer on Al Unser Jr.'s car. The only other injury that he suffered was a concussion. He's a very, very lucky person after that incredible, horrific accident on pit road. Scott Sharp was allowed to pit while the pits are closed because he was running out of fuel. Each broadcast will answer your internet questions about the IRL IndyCar Series. Today we have questions from Jim, Joe, and Andrew, all related to tires. What are the IRL IndyCar tires inflated with, and what is the tire pressure that they use? And Scott Goodyear, since you're our driver expert, tell us about that.
Well, Bob, that's a great question. The key thing for the tires is nitrogen. They don't use air so much, although Firestone has developed a process in this past 2 years to actually take the water out of the air. Now, water is the enemy for the tires because they will actually expand the tire and actually cause heat, and that expansion in the heat actually can cause a problem with blistering. Now, pressures is very interesting because on the left-hand side, usually 28 to 32 pounds. Right-hand side, a lot higher, 38 to 42 pounds. And pressures can be adjusted to make the car handle different during pit stops. Bob?
Log on to ESPN.com, keyword IRL, and submit your question, which we'll try to answer during our next race. The 2004 schedule was released by the IRL IndyCar Series yesterday. Here it is. The first 5 races are in the same order. Pikes Peak will move to the second half of the season, moving Richmond, Kansas City, and Nashville up. Now, the second half will start at Milwaukee, a brand new track for the IRL IndyCar Series. Pikes Peak goes to August 22nd, and once again, the series will conclude at Texas Motor Speedway on October the 17th. 10 of those races will be on ABC, and 6 will be on ESPN. Now, the pits are open, so this time around, with 49 laps to go, The teams will be coming in to get their final pit stop, the final fuel load that they will need to carry them to the checkered flag here this afternoon. Sam Hornish, the leader of the race, brings them down under the speed limit, and pit road is going to become very, very busy at this time.
Bobby, have you ever had a day that just goes absolutely perfect? There's a spring in your step and there's a bounce in your voice. That's the case with Sam Hornish. No changes on this, what should be final pit stop for this team in the first under the yellow, Gary.
And for Scott Dixon, the car's been good. They will make their first aero change, a half turn on the front wing. There it is, but there goes a whole host of other cars. Oh, it's close to Hornish in a traffic jam, but Hornish has the advantage.
Once again, a scramble off of pit road. Dixon comes out in 4th position. We'll line him up and come back and get ready to race in a moment.
Today we start using Star Track, a system we're developing to mark key players in the pack. Now, IndyCar teams spend thousands of dollars to reduce weight on these cars. Research by ABC and TV Graphics require being able to track the cars without adding any equipment to the race car itself. So this is an external GPS system that can follow an IndyCar at better than 220 miles an hour and move back and forth in between them. They were hoping to start this lap. They had decided not to, apparently because the field was not moving fast enough to the IRL liking. Jack Arute?
Kenny Breck, you pulled an on-fire car right all the way down on pit road. Why?
Well, because it caught fire yesterday. I turned into pit road, and then it's too late to stop, so I drove it down there and let them take care of it.
Well, it's all okay, though.
So Kenny Breck, his 3rd straight DNF. There is Tony Kanaan. He is 6th place, was the points leader coming into here. And Sam Hornish now picking the pace up. 156 laps have been raced here. And Gary Gerald, there was a problem in Jill DeFerrin's pit, wasn't there?
Bueller, Chris Seaman got grazed by the car as it left. It tweaked his left knee, which he said buckled. He gave everybody a thumbs up as they're taking him into the medical center. They're being very cautious to make sure there's no problem. But he had a big grin in his face, and everything looked good, Paul.
Pretty stylish guy, Chris. Hope he's all right. Hornish picks the pace, and here we go again. You saw the separation on the restart order. Dixon's going to try to stay with him. Here comes Unser Jr., though. He wants to stay with him as well. He not only wants to stay with him, he wants to get around him and get back on the lead lap.
Well, right at the beginning of the start there, Paul, it looked like Al Jr. was going to stay high and let Dixon get through because Al Jr.'s down 1 lap, but maybe he has some second thoughts, actually, as the race got going.
Well, now as Hornish pulls away, Dixon comes back alongside and around Unser Jr. Again, not a battle for position because Unser Jr. is a lap down. Now there is Mark, and there is Dixon. The move back from Hornish to Dixon.
What a great system, but right now Dixon's just watching Hornish drive away, and he saw that happen last time, and when he's probably flat out going all that he can do and watching another driver drive away, it's a really deflating problem for a driver. He just gets on the radio and says, man, I'm going as fast as I can.
Well, Dixon, for the first time in recent laps, is actually staying fairly much with Hornish. The average speed, or the lap speed, about 215 miles an hour for both last time around. Dixon, though, was just a shade faster.
Now, any changes that they had to make on their car, Paul, was actually done on that last stop. Sometimes tire pressure, sometimes wing changes. Drivers always communicate with the pit lane, as we talk about. Any changes had to be done that last stop because they have to run for these last 40 laps as it is. Now, there are some adjustments inside the cockpit the driver can do, but they're not as large of a change as it can be done in pit lane. So we're going to see right now how much speed these guys have out of their car.
Now take a look at this. This is everybody going for position a little further back in the field. And there's some serious battling as Kanaan tries to get low on Castroneves. That's for 5th place. Right behind Kanaan is Buell, and then Weldon's back behind Buell. You mentioned that Scott, on what they have to do to the end now, because all the fuel's on these cars. They're going to go to the end now, barring another caution period, and even then it would only be for tires.
Yeah, but they certainly would not come in if there was another yellow, Paul. That's for certain. As we watch Robbie Buell, remember, he qualified 19th last weekend at St. Louis, and what a difference a weekend makes.
Boy, Hornish has had his way today. Buddy Lazier. I was about to say that he's having problems this weekend, but he said it much better with his...
It's weird. It's like it's floating on the heat air in there.
So he's complaining that the car is different on both ends. We talked about that at the beginning of the show. Remember,
look at his hands.
His hands right now, and see how high his right hand is right there? All the way up until about the 12 o'clock position. Sam Hornish's right hand's over here, telling you his car's probably handling a lot better.
Here's a guy that's won twice and finished second once.
Oh, fighting the steering wheel. Very rough ride right now. Remember, car's different in 1 and 2 than it is in 3 and 4. It's not very consistent for him. Very difficult to drive.
A little bit earlier, about 4 laps ago, he almost got together with Thomas Schechter. It was real close. New sponsor on that car, the 91 car. So hopefully that helps him. Always good to see a new sponsor in the series as well.
You know, he's been off a pace like a lot of the Chevy drivers have been this year that we talked about. But watch for those guys to resurge next year. Ron Himmelkarn, Ronnie Dawes, all those guys, a lot of experience, won the Indy 500. They'll be back and being championship continue going on next year. They'll be a contender for sure.
Tony Kanaan and Helio Castroneves, ongoing fight for 5th place.
There again, a difficulty looks for Kanaan, Paul, is that he gets up behind the back of Castroneves, but he just can't make his way by. Remember, he gets that dirty air, disturbs the car, and makes the car come out from underneath him. Going to try the draft right now, see if he can find the low side. Doesn't have enough speed to carry it through. Off the throttle because the car is not working very well.
It just draws you right in, though, when you get right under the rear wing of the car. Remember the stories we talked about at the start of the day? Well, let's update them. Rough ride. You just saw Buddy Lazier. Block fight. Well, that's going on. 1, 2, and 3. They pounded each other, though Toyota is hoping to wrap up a championship. And Tony Kanaan is currently 6th, and that's not helping his points fight at all.
There are 4 races left. Nazareth next weekend, a very tight 1-mile track, 3 distinctively different turns, premium on handling before we get to the next 3 events after that.
There were the points as they came into the race. Tony Kanaan leading, but only 24 points covering the top 4. You know, we've had 10 laps of caution, 1 caution period now. 3 pit stops in the race, and are still averaging 194.6 miles an hour.
Interesting to note right now, you see the yellow dot on there of Hornish and the red of Dixon. I'll tell you, Hornish is not leaving in this time, and each lap they go by, Hornish and Dixon are 2:18.5, 2:18.6, so I think Dixon made some changes, Paul, and he's definitely got a car that is at least keeping pace with Sam Hornish.
Yeah, and the top 3, Hornish, Dixon, and Herta, are also the top 3 in speed the last several laps, running about 216 miles an hour. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC station. You're watching ABC Sports Championship Television. Unless we get a caution, we're going to be commercial-free to the checkered flag here at Kentucky. Firestone onboard telemetry for Al Unser Jr., currently 4th place.
You see this arrow right here in the green section, Paul, tells you the tire pressures are up to optimum pressure and working conditions for Al Jr. Watch his throttle, not lifting off all that much through the tri-section right now, going into 1 and 2. His car's working very well. All the turns down the backstretch. See the speed, still always up over 200 miles an hour. Lateral G's, though, is not working. You usually see about 3.5 G's.
Look at this. We've mentioned it before. We've now had 10 laps of caution. They're still running 195.7 miles an hour average. Let's get an update on the front runners. We start with Sam Hornish and Jack Arute.
And there have been zero problems for Sam Hornish all day. He likes the fact that he's been up front. Only one minor tire pressure change, Gary Gerald, and that was in the first pit stop. Last two stops, no changes, just 35 gallons of fuel in Firestone tires.
And Jack, for the third and final stop for Scott Dixon, we saw them add a half turn of wing. Mike Hull tells us it has helped the car's handling. They are staying with Hornish, but they just need a break. They know now that they're running out of time. How about third place Brian Herta?
Well, the Honda power for Brian Herta was good, but not good enough, so they went to sixth gear. That was not fast enough. That cost them some valuable track position, and now they're just cruising along in third place. For fourth position, Al Unser Jr., it's been a battle of the understeer throughout most of the day. Once they dialed it out by making tire pressure changes and also a couple of wing adjustments, he finds himself one lap down and with few to race, Gary.
With just over 15 laps to go for Helio Castroneves, who's running in fifth place. We asked Tim Cindric a moment ago about the key. He said, just don't lose momentum. Maintain that track position. Don't make a mistake. Remember, Kanaan is only about 4 car lengths back. As for Tony Kanaan, we talked with Kim Green, and we said, what can you do? Can you try to get up there? And he said, the car is actually working very, very well. You just have to rely on the other drivers somehow making a mistake, maybe in traffic.
Everybody's carrying enough fuel to easily make it to the finish, which is now only 15 laps away. But Dixon, I think, is the key now because he's beginning to stick with Sam Hornish Jr. He's been steadily just about 2 seconds back. That's only 200 yards.
Well, it's 2.1, just about 2.3 now. I've noticed over the last couple of laps, so don't expect to see him catch up. But what to look for if we do end up with a yellow on a restart, look for him to make a very bold move. Seems like his last chance for any opportunity to win this one.
This fall, America unleashes its newest secret weapon, an elite team of experts whose greatest missions are keeping us safe from any and all threats. Threat Matrix, a new drama, coming Thursdays on ABC. Tony Kanaan, 6th place, edging up on Helio Castroneves and Al Unser Jr. Fastest laps of the day. Bit of a surprise that it's Dixon when you, well, it's only by an increment, but.
Well, the key thing here, Paul, is that's one lap. Look at the constant laps you have for Sam Hornish Jr. That's what he's done in traffic. It doesn't matter. Consistently hard driving is put him to the front and put all these guys down, because now it comes back to be seen that there's guys that can maybe run his pace, but they're probably just that lap behind as we see.
Kanaan tried Helio Castroneves, couldn't get it done in the first turn, had to drop back, lost a little momentum. That's Al Unser Jr. just ahead of Castroneves and Greg Ray ahead of him. On this date in auto racing history, 1957, A.J. Foyt made his first IndyCar start over at Springfield. Won a couple $100, $607 for that. Yeah, now he's getting a little emphatic on the radio there. Foyt the 4th is 3 laps behind the lead in 16th place. Lazier fighting with Foyt the 4th. AJ must have been coaching him a little bit.
Oh, very close there, very close. And they touched.
And the leader's right there.
See, and now the leader's behind him, so this is a very tense time for Sam Hornish Jr. He's going, guys, come on, just get in line here. Don't ruin my day.
Advantage may go to Dixon because Hornish is going to have to be very careful here.
Now, A.J. Foyt the 4th has really had a learning curve this year, Paul, and he's done excellent in these last few races. He's become very quick at quite a few tracks. He's learning and getting experience, which is going to help him next year. A.J.
told his grandson the leader was behind you, and the 4th immediately moved over and gave him racing room. Now Hornish is trying to catch up to Lazier. Lazier 3 laps down. Paul Page with Scott Goodyear, Bob Jenkins, Gary Gerald, and Jack Arute. We're at Kentucky Speedway, watching a race that has had a single caution, and Sam Hornish has been the class of the day. Despite those lead changes and leaders, those all came on the 3 pit stops. Hornish has absolutely dominated this thing. Takagi ran himself out of gas, or he might have been in the fight. and only 2 cars, Kenny Breck and Alex Barron, out of competition. Breck with a pretty good fire at the back of his car when he brought it in. Look at that. Overall average speed at 197.2. Green flag at 215. Heading for the closing laps now. Here's laps led this season to this point. Scott Dixon leading all comers with 625 in his 3 victories. Gil DeFerrin staying steady, but now Sam Hornish beginning to roll up the laps as he looks for a 9th career win.
5 to go, 5 to go.
That's exactly what a driver wants to hear when he's leading. 5 to go. Hopefully no traffic in front for him. Seems like he has a big stretch down the back straightaway with nobody in sight.
A lot of records about to fall here. Fewest cautions in IRL history thus far has been 3 on 7 different occasions. We've only had 1 today. We've told you the average speed just continues to be awesome. And if Hornish can win it, it'll be his 9th career win. And he becomes the all-time IRL race winner. Sharp and Lazier both have 8. Sharp making his 70th consecutive start here today.
And it'll be another new winner again this season, although Sam Hornish has won plenty, has not been to victory circle so far this year.
Well, still Dixon is there.
He's there 1.3 seconds, but Paul, even if he got caught up in traffic, I'm not sure that he has enough right now to get around Sam Hornish. And then coming to a part that Sam Hornish have a little bit left right now if he needs it.
There's the relationship. Hornish to Dixon, 1.3 seconds.
2 to go, 1.4 second lead.
Poncho Carter, his spotter, telling Sam Hornish Jr. just a couple to go, and I can assure you that he's being very cautious, hitting his points, being very calculated around the racetrack. Scott Dixon right now has got his foot right to the peg and pushing everything out of it he can.
Hornish was fastest last lap, 217.3 to Dixon's 216.8.
Did we blister any other tires? Because I think we got her blistered right here.
Now that's interesting to hear from Hornish, because last year some blistering went on with some tires here. He knows he's got 1 lap left, and he's certainly not going to take his foot off.
Half a lap to go, half a lap to go.
Dixon still in pursuit. Giant crowd here on their feet watching as Sam Hornish Jr. runs and takes the win. His first of the season. Another different winner here. The Pennzoil Panther crew celebrates. They've done it again. Getting the equipment, and they're gone. Scott Dixon in second. Brian Herta 14 seconds back in 3rd place. Gary?
John Barnes, we were going to get a word with him. He points to Gary Pettigo and he says, talk to this man.
He's too happy he can't talk right now, but I'm just so proud of this team, and I'm proud of Sam. He's such a great race driver, and we put a good car under him, and you saw what he can do. He's the greatest.
Gary, you've seen dominant performances by this driver in the past. How does this one compare?
Well, it's as good as any I've seen. This is probably the best one. As a matter of fact, I don't know how many laps we led. I know we led a lot. I know he just had his foot in it the whole race. He's an awesome young man, and he's an awesome race driver. I'm just proud as I can be of him.
And I believe it's the fastest race in IRL history.
Is it? I don't know that, but there weren't any yellows, I don't think. There was 1 yellow.
1 yellow.
Yeah, it was a great race. Great race. Thank you.
Yeah, there's reason to celebrate. 200 laps of racing, 10 of them a caution. And Sam Hornish, his 9th win. Boy, if he'd only had that ability early in the season, think what that would have done for a championship. Well, he's stalled it now, so he's just going to climb out. He's going to have something to match Helio Castroneves. Crowd's loving it.
Well, look at that. That's a big stop. And there comes the Pennzoil Panthers team. You talking about the happiest.
Oh, yeah, look at him.
This is their first win of 2003.
Temperatures approaching 90 degrees. It's been a blistering day. Great run for Hornish and some fairly awesome racing back behind the leader.
You know, those guys were all fighting for position back there, Paul, as you mentioned, but right now, total elation for these guys in this team. One of the Chevy teams that have struggled all year. Just makes you wonder, like we mentioned, where would Sam be right now if he had a little bit more horsepower earlier in the season? And he's not out of the points championship quite yet either.
Oh, don't drop him, guys. You know, the interesting thing, though, is there's still a lot of questions around where will Sam Hornish be racing next year. Last indication was there is no deal made with anybody for his services.
Well, I know for a fact that there's going to be a meeting tomorrow in Indianapolis with Sam, his attorney, and the team, and this only helps strengthen the package.
Now we got Jack Arute on the run out there, too. Jack?
And Sam Hornish has indeed stalled his car, but he is out of the car, and this is a happy guy. This is a guy that when he first got the Gen 4 engine, Sam Hornish said, I want to lap the field. Well, Sam, you only lapped almost all the field. What happened?
We had a real good run today. Everything kind of panned out the way we needed it to. I was hoping that the race went green flag all the way. We had a heck of a run going. Pennzoil Panther guys have worked so hard this year. I'm just so happy for these guys to get a win and get started on trying to get back in the championship point standings.
Starting the way the season did, they say those type of seasons build character. Enough character building?
Yeah, I had enough character building. I had a lot of fun regardless. We had good runs at a lot of places we went to, just came up short and had things not go our way. Now that we've got the horsepower and don't have to have everything just perfect, it gives us fun. It gives us a good chance to go out there and have days like today.
You talked about the fact you move into 5th place in the point standings. There's Nazareth coming up, and then back-to-back 3 super speedway races where horsepower is all about it, and you've done well on horsepower tracks.
Yeah, you know, we get through Nazareth, and I like Nazareth. I haven't had a lot of good luck there. Hoping to turn that around this year, and then we go to 3 tracks that we won at last year, so we're excited about that.
A lot of decisions you're going to have to make in the next couple of weeks. Any closer to your timetable, Sam?
You know, we keep getting closer, but, you know, the decision's yet to be made, and, you know, days like today, it's easy to put that stuff out of your head and just think about today.
Gary?
Well, here is Scott Dixon, and I guess the question for you, you get second place, a lot of points, but how disheartening is it to see Hornish in that new Chevy power plant having so much muscle today?
I don't know. I don't think, you know, obviously you're not going to have a good race every time. I think we had a fairly decent car. Obviously we had the second best car. You know, the whole engine deal is still, you know, I think, I don't know. Obviously we need to find something, but, you know, Toyota's done a great job all year. You know, obviously Chevy had to find a lot. It seems like they found a pretty good benchmark, but I want to thank the team and Target. You know, obviously we had the next best car today.
You've got 4 races left, and we don't have the championship points at our disposal, but you know you gained a lot of ground, and you're really back in the thick of this. I think you're in 3rd place now.
Yeah, that's what we needed. You know, obviously, you know, Sam's not really in the championship fight, so we needed to concentrate on getting points. It was the best we could do today. You know, maybe the win with the extra 10 points would have helped, but it wasn't the day for it.
Well, I'll tell you, I just was told in my ear, you're 12 points out of the championship lead with 4 to go. That's over 200 points up for grabs, so you're right in the middle of it. You got to love that feeling, I would think.
Yeah, it's a lot better than when we came in, so you know, that's good. At least it's tightened up, and you know, we got Nazareth coming up next week. Enjoy Nazareth and can't wait to get there.
All right, we look forward to it. Thank you. Good job.
Thanks a lot.
Bob?
Well, here are the point standings now. 8 separate 1st and 2nd. Dixon's 12 behind, Affarin 13 behind. Indeed, do not count Hornish out of the championship. He is 77 behind.
Sometimes it's not the race you win that's the most fulfilling. It's the race that you finish in the top 4 or 5. For Brian Herta today, a top 3 finish, first Honda across the line. You're smiling an awful lot.
Yeah, it was. Well, you know, it's been a tough few weeks, and especially last week with the accident. And I just want to say hi to Anton out there. I know, you know, he had surgery, and he's doing real good. We're all happy to see that, and look forward to him being back at the track. And you know, for the Archipelago Motorola crew, this is awesome. I mean, everybody's talking about the new Chevy, but that old Honda's still pretty good too.
And you were flat out all the way around. What about in the beginning of the race? Did you have a couple of slight handling issues?
I don't think anything more than anybody. I mean, this is a tough place to get, you know, to keep your car underneath you, and I think that's. We didn't have, in lap time, we didn't have probably a top 10 car, but in handling, you know, we were able to run wide open pretty much every lap, even in traffic, and that was the difference. I mean, my car was awesome and probably one of the best races I've ever driven. That's why I'm smiling so much. I'm really happy.
And Gary, we're all pretty happy about the fact that the injured crewman, Mr. Anton, is doing all right, and I think it's kind of nice. He doesn't even drive for that team, and he's concerned about him.
That's a great gesture, obviously. Here's Helio Castroneves. A week ago at this time, you were on the fence at St. Louis. No fence today, but only 8 points out of the championship lead. Is that the big benefit out of this day?
Absolutely. Like I said before, unfortunately, when you don't have the car to win, well, finish the position that you think you are. And I think 5th, it's not the best, but it's not the worst. I mean, I know I've been worse before. So great team effort. Hope Chris, one of the Gilles guys, he's all right. Hopefully he recover for the next race. And but great jump from the championship, as you just said.
Let me ask you quickly about, you've battled with Hornish in the past last year for the championship that went to the final lap of the final race. He definitely looks like he's back now. How much will that play into the championship mix over the last 4 races in your mind?
Well, what I understand, he's not back. He's ahead. But, again, it's good because right now we have only 4 races to go. And basically, hopefully, we're not going to keep doing what he's doing and what he just did here. But we're still a lot of points ahead, but we can never count less those guys. So let's keep working hard.
Bob, it's a whole different deal. Next race, short track, Nazareth.
Should be a fun time next Sunday. And by the way, that speed that was turned in here today, average 197.897, was not only the fastest race in IRL IndyCar Series history, but according to our statistician, it was the fastest auto race on a closed course. Unbelievable. Only 1 caution during the entire 200 laps. Well, the Infinity Pro Series ran here yesterday at Kentucky Speedway. They too had a very competitive race and an accident. Let's take a look first of all at the accident. It was Tom Wood and Brandon Irwin. Wood sheds a tire and slams nearly head-on into the 3rd turn wall. He has been transferred to Methodist Hospital and has 2 broken legs and 2 broken ankles. That in Indianapolis, of course, as Jeff Simmons went on to win his 2nd consecutive Infinity Pro Series race. There are the final standings. Now, you notice that Mark Taylor, who is the points leader, his name is not on there, and that is because he was unable to compete due to food poisoning. Jack?
Well, for Al Unser Jr. and the Corteco team and the Bryant team, things were good. You had the little bit of push. You got that out, and then all of a sudden the gearbox went awry.
The gearbox went awry, right? Almost about 10 or 15 laps into the race. It started when I'd go into 5th. It started knocking itself out. Once everybody started moving, I went to 5th gear and it started coming out. There was a miss in the engine, so there was just something wrong with the gearbox, and then finally it just wouldn't stay in 5th at all. So I had to run the whole race in 4th gear, which put me on the rev limiter at start-finish line and make a long day out of it.
Long hot day.
It was pretty warm, but you look like you need to be cooled off there.
Oh. Gary.
Well, I'm glad that you're doing that one instead of me at this point, although it is hot. Tony Kanaan, you started this day with a 7-point lead. You have an 8-point lead now. Do you breathe any easier?
No, it was the toughest race of my life for sure. I'm that tired. I mean, it was really tough to pass and to keep up. I mean, I had to give everything. So 1 point at a time, we're gaining in the lead. So let's see what's going to happen at Nazareth now.
A lot of people, maybe not a lot, but there are people who say that this type of racing is just foot on the floor, go after it, that anybody can do it. How do you respond to that?
Just come over here and try, because if anybody think it's easy, I'll invite them to give a couple laps in my car, and then we'll see what's going to happen, because it's not easy at all.
How much does the game change going to the short track next week at Nazareth as opposed to this race on the 1.5 mile oval?
Well, we have a good oval, my oval car. We won Phoenix. We've been very successful, so I'm very confident going in there, and hopefully we get up in the top of the podium.
There you go, Pop.
All right, thank you, Gary. Well, Monday at 5 Eastern, catch X Games finals coverage on ESPN featuring aggressive inline vert. Then at 9 Eastern, turn to ESPN2 for more finals coverage, including men's wakeboard. Sam Hornish Jr. wins at Kentucky. We'll be right back.
Buddy Rice, the Red Bull Cheever team, finished in the 11th position with Chevrolet power. Back in the hunt, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, we had a pretty good car. Once we burned about 10 laps or so off on the fuel, it was really good. We just bottoming too bad and got got caught out twice on the exit at 2 trying to be aggressive, and just hit the floor too bad, and it stuck us up on the marbles and then tried to put us in the wall. But, you know, we just keep working on it. We'll keep, you know, nicking away at this. Hopefully we'll get a solid finish out of this deal, and we'll have a good, you know, finally good race.
Now, this will be 2 races in a row that you've been in the Gen 4 Chevrolet. You go to your 3rd race, but it's that super short track down in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. What have you cobbled together in terms of knowledge about the performance of the Gen 4 that can help you in Pennsylvania?
Well, I mean, the torque and the horsepower. I mean, everywhere you go, you can use the horsepower, no problem. But definitely going to those mild tracks, you're going to have big pull and all the aero and the downforce that we're going to run there. You need the torque. So the torque of the Gen 4, I think, is going to show up there, and hopefully that'll, you know, keep us in the hunt, definitely. And hopefully we can have a finish like Sam. And they just had an excellent day over there at the Panther team. So hopefully we can have one of those days here shortly.
Bob, one of the things everybody's talking about down here on pit road is that the playing field is even yet again.
Certainly appears so. Here are the final results. There are 3 cars on the lead lap at the end of the race. An attaboy to Robbie Buell and his Dreyer and Reinbold team. They finished in 7th position, their best finish of the year, and only 2nd top 10 of the year. Buddy, of course, finished in 11th position, and only 2 cars were out of the race when the checkered flag dropped. Kenny Breck and Alex Barron. So a very safe race. And in terms of competition, well, as was stated earlier, there were some good battles in the back of the pack, but Sam Hornish Jr. just absolutely dominated things, and he dominated from the very beginning. When the green flag dropped, rather, Hornish from pole position took off, leaving everyone in his wake and leaving everyone to battle for spots. Lap 146, the only caution of the race. An engine fire from Kenny Breck. He drove it onto pit road, where the crew and the fire team were there to put out the flames with no injury. On lap 191, a close call for A.J. Foyt IV and Buddy Lazier, as coming off of corner number 2, they touched wheels, but good driving by both of these guys prevented any accident. Here it is from the onboard camera. There's the touch of wheels, but both guys did a great job in keeping control of their mounts. Sam Hornish Jr. went on to win, and the margin of victory was 1.1 second. And again, the average speed 197.897, the fastest race in IRL history. There were 5 different leaders during this race and 9 lead changes. That's the situation from here at Kentucky, but as been stated earlier, we'll go to Nazareth, Pennsylvania next Sunday and have another race all over again. Well, coming up next on ABC Sports, the X Games. Join us Sunday, August 24th for the Firestone Indy 225 from Nazareth, Pennsylvania. You can see it live at 3 o'clock Eastern, noon Pacific, over on ESPN. ABC Sports is online at ESPN.com. Keyword ABC Sports. So long from Kentucky.
Kentucky Thunder. Kentucky